Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Merhaba, Turkey.
Merhaba. I'll leave the stage to you right away because I made a short introduction. Please take your time. It's
Excellent.
20 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm in Amsterdam. I work at SAP, where I'm responsible for what you call the innovation of mini apps and components, as well as the strategy around what you and I would call today artificial intelligence. Now let's go a little bit back to that. Let's go to the experience economy and let's go to what happened in 2019, 2020 that is still hitting us today, right? An experience economy is mostly defined as a global, efficient, organized economy that makes it really easy, yada, yada, yada. You read this, right? The reality is we had a plan. And then came COVID 19. And suddenly, up till today, 2 years after lockdowns, back from lockdowns, etc., we realize that we are in a situation where we still have ships waiting at the cave for us, still have supply chain issues, still have things, the most mundane things that aren't making it to our shelves. And we wonder how could such a short term stop for 2, 3 months, 1.5 year later, come back? And what do we do with it? And of course, where does AI play a role? So let's go there. So, what we have seen in 2020, 21 is actually not big system development or big system migration or the need to bring everything to the cloud. I'm not saying it wasn't important. It was pretty important because companies figured out, like, oh, I had a 2005 system and I did some mumbling and jumbling and stuff between 2005 and 2015, and now my technology is not up to date. But that wasn't the story. The story is we needed suddenly to get an agility, a flexibility that we did not have. And we needed to sometimes in these big processes that we know, though one little interrupt that really could drive extreme automation. So let's go a little bit what it happens, right? 2020 became the paradigm shift for business systems. Business systems that normally need a big investment and education and training to bite-sized, easy to understand mini apps, things that you could wedge in. And of course, they had to be of the same technology platform or living together with the technology you were using, but it had to do one thing, one really repetitive, boring thing that humans just couldn't scale up, especially since we were all working from home. So these were the moment that suddenly all our restaurants closed and we wanted to get food at home, right? And you had a company like Delivery Hero or Yamak Separate, if I
Mhm.
say it, I'm doing my best here. Um, and we had this like, hold on, I just ordered food to come home. I can't leave. It's a lockdown. Where's my order? I wanted to have contactless payments in situations where suddenly were cash. We needed to have curbside check-in, like, hello, I'm here, or curbside check-on, bring my stuff. We needed to every day start talking with employees at home, like, are you okay? Are you healthy? How are you doing? Without giving them more work in the stress that they had at home. But if we look at the company itself, we came with a question like, okay, so my 80% of my suppliers aren't able to produce or deliver. What are the local potential new suppliers? How can I work with multiple suppliers and coordinate them? How do I do my planning? What is my real cash position at this moment? Because in a big fat supply chain where you have all your orders going out, you have cash. But now suddenly we had to be totally flexible. What's the forecast for next month? All these older questions that we said, well, we're going to build a BI system, etc., now needed to come within 6 weeks or 8 weeks into our company. Enter artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence, the way I define it, or me and my team define it, is nothing more than a series of technologies that we knew together with some new stuff. And let me redefine that. We take technologies that we have. We take a little bit of blockchain. We take a little bit of data intelligence or analytics. We take a little bit of data science, maybe some sensors. We combine that with something new, machine learning instead of hardwired rules. And then we take, and this is really in 2020 came up and is now mainstream in 2021, we start using robotic process automation or intelligent RPA to orchestrate that the input of one technology is the output of the next technology. And all we do is we automate one boring, mind numbing, repetitive task for the knowledge worker. let me make this clear again. When you're an accountant and you did 7 years of education, and you sit 3 days a week with 47 spreadsheets and your admin team, what an incredible waste of time that is just to do some invoice reconciliation. When you're a lawyer, and every time you work on contracts, you take the papers and you have to take the paper again and hold them to the light and see where number 1 paper has changed from number 2 paper. And we be clear, 1 comma, that Oxford comma that has moved, is the difference between a disclaimer and an exclusion and a $30 million lawsuit. So it is important. But you didn't study 7-8 years to become a lawyer or a general counsel. Just do red light contracts 4 days a week. What an incredible, repetitive, mind-numbing, boring task. So AI is taking some technologies that we know, take some machine learning where we actually put that knowledge of that task and we put a sidekick on a professional's shoulder and actually take the repetitive, boring, mundane task away from them. And this is where the agility came in. So let's get some example, right? The misconception is that everybody, oh, AI is for new things. We're going to drive electric cars. We're going to do, and don't get me wrong, these are phenomenal cases. But 95% of the cases, we want to do the same things that we used to do. Faster, cheaper, with much more data and with much more quality time for other things. So let me give you a few examples here, right? Expense management. Everybody loves it. 4 days a week, you're working, you're traveling, and then one day you spend an afternoon going to all these receipts and typing them in. What a great use of your best salespeople to let them do admin half a day a week. What if you just took the travel confirmation or the invoice or the bill or the receipt and made a picture out of it, and the technology would actually parse it and say, okay, you had so many lira, you were in Turkey, in Istanbul that week, I take this receipt at the date as the same trip as your ticket, therefore I'll bring them together. The only question that I need to have, because man, there was a lot of cafes in the center of Istanbul there near Czech Passage. Let's just call it dinner. And the only question I have for you was this: with a client or was this an employee expense? And the same applies for sales orders. The moment you get sales orders in by PDF or by email, you should be able to parse them and say, this is the customer, this is the amount, let's make the booking. Which means that you and I, as professionals, only focus on the outliers, maybe 10%, 12% of the special cases. Now, this is not new technology. This was already technology that was there in 2020. Only in 2020 this skyrocketed because we now needed to automate repetitive tasks away from our people to give them flexibility back to deal with the lockdown and the change supply chain and the change approach. The same, the same we saw for invoice reconciliation. The moment we went to new suppliers, and we got all these smaller invoices, right? We needed to basically do the technology, do the same. Read the invoice for me, match the invoice with the contract, process the payment when they're on top, and let me know which suppliers or which customers I need to talk to because they haven't paid. And it's interesting because it also changes something. It suddenly makes the accounting team part of your relationship management. Like, oh wait, so you only pay my invoice because the bigger item that you have produced is sold, so your payment follows your revenue. Maybe we should not every month bother you with invoice reconciliation. Maybe we should actually get another kind of contract with you and save me and the admin team a lot of work. So suddenly we change the relationship of our people and their involvement as well, and employees get a different role. Take that example of contract management, right? Changing the way how you and your customer do this. If you and your customer both actually go to the contract together online real time and say, hey, these are the changes we both had. What did you mean with that? Totally changes the nature of a contract negotiation. Instead of being in a heart-to-heart battle, it becomes a collaborative thing. So it's not just that technology takes the tasks away. If we are smart, we're not going to work harder but smarter, and we actually take the time to change the process in a more constructive, faster, efficient approach. So all these things happen, but the expectation is by 2024, intelligent technology like AI will actually be used to reinvent, digitize, or eliminate 80% of tasks with business process and products that we used to do 20 years ago. Now I hear you say, really, that's a lot. Let's be clear, 20 years ago, you did not date with your finger swiping. You had to go in a bar and say, hey, hello, how are you doing? 20 years ago, you had no touchscreen. 20 years ago, you went on holiday with a stack of CDs or tapes in your cars. All these things, and we have technology processes that were installed 20 years ago in most larger companies. Or we have principles that go back to 20 years ago. So what we expect, that the trend that was already there in 2018, 2019, where machine learning and artificial intelligence were suddenly used to take a step back and deconstruct our processes, is rapidly changing now as the impact of what we have learned in 2020 and 2021. So let's take one step back, right? Winston Churchill always used to say, never waste a good crisis. Well, in 2021, who led the digital transformation of your company? Was it your incredible visionary strategic CEO? Was it your brilliant CTO? Or did you just, whatever your strategy, you had no choice? COVID said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to close your shop. And then you had these people like, wow, we've all these beautiful stores in the city. Yeah, we have a web store. We did that because we had that. And suddenly like, okay, we can sell everything from the web, but how do we get the inventory of our stores actually in our online environment? Never thought about that. I pushed that forward for 10 years, right? So suddenly that flexibility, that agility need to come. Now, agility is when I'm making an incredible dash run on the train station and I really make that one train. I'm breathless, but I just make that one train, right? I have been able to move quickly and easy, but I'm exhausted. And now I'm coming to the next train station and I need to go 6 platforms further and I just don't have breath. I don't have resilience. So agility, and this is a slide from IDC that I literally borrow, right? Really showed that we had these task apps, these mini apps coming up in 2020. And yes, at SAP, we have been guilty as charged to contribute a lot of them, like supplier scorecard, employee safety and well-being, or contactless payment, click and collect. Both internally and externally, we started to package microservices of our own platform or existing technology and actually build that agility. The point was, when the lockdown was over, we had to realize, what are we going to do next time? And the next time is today. Maybe there's no lockdown, but we now suddenly have a supply chains issue. One ship in the Suez Canal, and 6 months later, the world still pays the price in logistic docking problems and stocking items in store. So if I take, for instance, close to home, PostNL, the Dutch national mail services, what they say, well, let's take actually the technology that we have in-house, build some new API platforms and make it available, make those APIs, make those packaged mini apps, these AI powered parts available. The best example is, I used to ship things to your business. You have just set in the system, temporarily, I'm taking stuff from home. All the API would do is say, hey, Mark at the moment is taking all his business orders, not at the SAP office, but reship them to them home. Or this store is at the moment closed. Maybe you want to reconnect with the receiver and what you do. So all they did is they took the efficiency back and the extra deliveries and the extra returns out of the system by making their own APIs available to retailers, right? Share your insight to the outside. Now, building resilience is the next step. So let's go to that. Companies become more resilient by being more responsive, more agile to the customers and the market they serve. The first step is really take the process that you know and deconstruct it. And sometimes you need to add things to make it simpler. And that sounds really weird, but for the gentlemen who are watching, those of you that help your spouse, your significant other with the wash, you'll know this, right? The moment you stand all alone home, you're standing there in your suit, you're waiting for a taxi, and you need a pair of matching socks. And like, darn, they're not in my drawer. Nobody's home, nobody's there to help you. You always rely on your partner. You go to the tumbler, you take the tumbler out, you make an incredible pile. You say, I have one dark sock. And you go through it till you have the second dark sock. The driver's outside already ringing or honking. And with socks in your hand and your shoes in the other, you jump in the car. My spouse, my wife, is incredible calm. And I was like, God, I gotta go. I need socks. Takes everything out of the tumbler on the table, makes little piles of dark socks, light socks, socks with a print. And in the dark socks, she says 1 dark, 2 dark. And although she added 2 steps to the process, she took 25% of the time that I need in total agony. Deconstructing is not necessarily making it more efficient with less steps, but say, hey, if I have 1 or 2 steps that do things smarter, how would my process look? Let me give you an example. We used to send these marketing sensor every 6 months this to all our customers. How do they use our product? And then had 4.2% of the customer response. But if you every day, like happened with some companies in the last 18 months, some monitor producer said, like, let's ask every day 100 random people, how during the self-isolation are you changing your computer habits? And we continuously make this a scorecard, and we share this live with all our customers. It becomes a dialogue. You have changed the customer process subtly. So deconstruct means when I take these, these big processes, order to cash, hire to retire, right? You have a machine, you have a human, you have a machine, you have a human. Can I take in that human step, can I replace one of that repetitive, mind, boring, numbing task out and add some value? Think of the accountant discussion or the lawyer that I gave you as an example. Second part in successful digital transformation from agility to resilience is redefine the end-to-end experience. Now, this is going to be the slide you're going to make your screenshot from. The last month, I've had the incredible pleasure, luxury, honor to interview, because, when you do product management and solution development, you need to listen to your customer. You need to take an outside-in perspective. And that means not to say, hey, this is the great product that we have, but listen to them. That's not, what keeps you awake at night. It's really long dialogue where you take the time to listen. What are the stopping points in the company in change and transition? And these are the 4 that came out. So I'm going to highlight number 3 first. Everybody who's under 35 is actually serious considered about that companies do as they say. It's really nice you talk about, we're so green and we do so social governance and diversity. What do we really do? Show me the numbers. Show me the numbers as a company. What do we really do? And it goes also to we have a green cloud. No, green cloud is more than a checklist. How much carbon footprint every day does our AI and does our environmental approach of using technology, using production and our suppliers actually beneficial has changed compared with 1 year ago? Your employees want to know that. Your customers want to know that. Your shareholders want to know that. You can't talk about it anymore. You need to go to data facts on that. So do as you say is becoming a cultural and ethics narrative, and people are actually leaving jobs or not going to jobs after the whole lockdown because of that. The next 3 years will all be about outcome based. We want to see the value. So don't tell me when you have a cloud or when you use technology, well, it saves so much money or it's subscription based. How do you contribute to the value that I'm creating? What are you doing for me? So we certainly get a more venture capitalist approach about the mini apps, those technology. What do we do for our customers, for our employees? Now, take point number 1. We call this citizen users. People that are actually not IT, but they work with low code and no code. They understand the business and they do analytics differently. And actually they use, whether it is Power BI or any kind of other tool, they use SAP Digital Boardroom, they use Tableau in Salesforce, you name it. In all those technologies, they solely can do this without IT help and rapidly get that insight. And remember, it's not the processes. Most processes have standardized over time. It is basically getting the secret sauce out of the inside. 1 or 2 of your processes are really special, and the rest is special like everybody else. So that also means that you need to look to your technology, to what is the most easy adoptions for my employee, right? Employee journals. Let me give you a fun fact, right? You have IKEA in Turkey. The IKEA guide is the most read document in the world, most read. More people have been exposed to Microsoft user interface. So before you go to any kind of other technology, whether it's a Google Workplace or whether it's an AWS, you need to figure out what does it mean in the transition for my people and the resistance. When you go to a hyperscaler, whether it is Microsoft or AWS or IBM or Google Cloud, you need to figure out who in my industry is also in that ecosystem of that hyperscaler. Like most large retailer like Walmart said, like, yeah, guys, we're competing with Amazon. We're not going to sit in AWS. That means automatically that a lot of technologies aren't there. So I'm not making a statement for a supplier. I'm actually trying to say your employees' acceptance in this journey is going to be essential. And this is where you need to think about both in your selection of technology as what change means for them. Those are the 4 things that really came out of those dialogues. Now, let's go to the last part and then we're going to round it up. Transform your workforce engagement. The best attempts at work-life integration uses intelligence technology like AI to alter employees' work to better accommodate their personal life. A pulse at the end of the day, an AI that takes a boring, repetitive task. What we also saw the last 1.5 years, the worst attempts at work-life integration, use gamification. Think about all the examples that Uber, etc., went through, the peer pressure of just do one other ride, it's $10, just do one more. That actually takes advantage of the passionate, driven employees. The choice is yours. Which one do you want to be? The price you pay or the revenue you get out of it is also yours. So summarizing, where do you start? Digital transformation. Redefine the end-to-end experience. Think about the SOX. Think about taking repetitive, numbing knowledge workers' tasks away, replace them with AI. Transform workforce engagement. Make people more involved. Look at really what impacts your workforce, but also about what you do about being green and the themes today. Pick your technology, your cloud as an ecosystem based on your suppliers and your customers that live in it. 3, deliver a step change to productivity, right? This is literally the whole part about if I put AI in a thing, what can my employee or what can my customer do better in that? Where do you start? Really, don't make it difficult. You know it. You know your process as well. This is one thing that's been so boring, so long time frustrating, mind-numbing. Put some AI in it. Take out a few steps. Think about the SOX. So, you want to know more about it? I did a TED Talk, this is some shameless self-promotion, about the 500-hour job, how we should not work harder, but work smarter. You can find it back in Google. And I think we have time for a question from the moderator.
Yes, we're a little late, but I'll ask this question. Actually, the presentation was great, but in the real world, actually, the businesses are using new technology to replicate the old business models and the old vision.
Correct.
So, what do you think about this transformation?
Well,
the story is great, but who will take this?
Well, so the good thing of cloud is that you actually, of course, you can take your existing technology and bring that to cloud by just wrapping it up, right? Put it in a container and continue. But the good thing of AI is that we actually see that it drives companies to, even if they have their old technology on-prem, instead of doing a big fat transformation, they can experiment with little things, with mini apps and AI, and later make that a foundation for them. So instead of big bang transformation, we have seen companies going much more to hybrid transformation. So they keep what they have, they start doing the new parts of their business in the cloud, they put their analytics slowly in the cloud, and they move process one by one over. They know, and especially in manufacturing, supply chain, CPG, fashion, that the world has changed. The interactions has changed with customers, and COVID really has made that clear. So when I go to the dialogues with customers, their concern actually is seldom now the technology part. The part is the people part. And a big bang means that the CIO is for 3 to 5 years totally stressed only on getting all technology replaced. By the time it's replaced, it's old again. So we need to be much more smarter in what you call a hybrid transition, a hybrid transformation, but also what makes my people and my customers in. And that's why I came with those points about, think about what ecosystem and cloud you're going to select, how it's going to work with your employees, how it's going to work with your customer and your supplier. Think about what are the first part that you will embrace and engage your workforce with. And those are the cases we see much more successful. I could give you an hour of examples there, but you know, we don't
please stop. Please stop.
So the hard thing always is in an 18 to 20 minute talk that you only stay in 10,000 miles high and you get the trends that are going. The reality is, I think more boards have become. No, let me give you one line. Up till 2020, tech was a different.
I guess this is an opportunity to.
Yeah, up till 2020, tech was a separate industry. Starting 2020, every industry has become tech, and that's where the real change is.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now we'll go on with the Turkish panel. It's about smart inventory management, and that's very critical as the dollar and the euro are fluctuating these days. Thank you for your contribution.
Teşekkür ederim.